Well, hello and welcome back to the Autoflower podcast. I'm Chad, I'm your host, and man, I'm flying solo today. I am so sorry, I totally dropped the ball. I had my dad in town from out of state, and man, he was staying here with me, and I just dropped the ball, and I am sorry about that. So, if you don't want to listen to me ramble, man, I totally understand if you just want to hit the stop button and move on with your day. But if you don't got nothing going on, then let's chat. Did you by chance see that article that Leafly posted? It's titled California Cannabis Labs Are Finding Toxic Metal in Vape Carts. Man, that's scary. You know, I vaped those cartridges of concentrated oil for about a year, and you know, the reason I stopped is because they were actually causing me to tick. If you haven't listened to any of the previous episodes, I have Tourette syndrome, and man, those things were actually causing me to tick. And when I switched over to vaping just normal cannabis, just normal dry buds, man, it helped me so much more. And let me read this article to you. It starts off saying, looks like it's time to get the heavy metal out of the vape carts. Yes, the toxic heavy metal lead, chemical symbol uppercase P, lowercase b, I don't know what that means, Powerball, is showing up in lab tests of recreational cannabis products in California. Specifically, those disposable pin-sized e-cigarette devices dubbed vaporizer cartridges or vape carts. Vape carts are a surging, high-profitable new sector of legal cannabis. They let you inhale a cool, potent cannabis mist anywhere at any time without anyone noticing. Since January 1st in California, all legal cannabis vape carts are subject to stringent new testing for heavy metals, including lead. Labs are reporting that some percentage of vape carts are showing a concerning amount of lead. That's a problem because the Centers for Disease Control has found that there is no safe level of exposure to lead. It's a neurotoxin that can decrease IQ as well as sicken and kill you. Jeez, sounds harsh, man. The U.S. and other countries have spent decades throttling lead exposures, banning lead paint, leaded gasoline, and other sources. It's interesting that it says it's a neurotoxin that can decrease your IQ. That's funny. But the neurotoxin part, because my Tourette's is a neurological disorder. And if I had any metals or anything in the vape cartridges that I was using, then that would definitely interrupt my neurological system, and rather than relieve my tics, it would cause me to tick. And so I don't know. I'm not saying that I had anything with heavy metal in it or anything like that, but man, it's something to look into because I know a lot of people use those vape cartridges. They're discreet. They are discreet and they are handy, man. I've used those things like at Disneyland and, Legoland, just everywhere you go, really. It's they don't really smell and it is convenient. So that's the draw to them, I guess. But be careful out there. If that's what you're doing, maybe look into the brand that you've got and see, where the source of their cartridges are coming from, and you might want to stay away from that. So let's talk about topping for a little bit. I've gotten quite a few messages since starting the podcast regarding topping. Questions like when to do it, can you do it, should you do it, and I think a better question would be, should I top? Not necessarily can I top. Of course you can. Should you is a more relevant question, in my opinion. And I think that is something that's going to have a different answer for each grower, depending on your environment, your setup, your, whether, what kind of lights you're using. If you're growing in a tent, a small tent like myself, for example, I'm in a 2 foot by 2 foot by 4 foot tent. If you're in a small tent like that, you've got a really short ceiling. And so for me, it totally, absolutely makes sense to top. The one time I did not top, actually, there was 2 times I did not top. I don't even know how many plants I've grown. Probably 12, I think. 2 of those I did not top. One of them I just let go natural into just the natural kind of Christmas tree form. And it grew within inches of my LED and damaged it and foxtailed. The other one I had just bent over 90 degrees and just let all of the nodes kind of grow up as colas. And that one was okay because I had just basically grown it horizontal. But the one that I didn't top ended up growing into my light. So for me, it's almost like I have to top, even like, and that was in a 2-gallon pot. So I don't know, I guess in a 1-gallon pot, maybe I wouldn't have to top, but I kind of have to. So really, I think, should you top? I think that depends on your situation. If you want to and you want to experiment with it, I most certainly think you should. I think that it will just give you that much more experience. How the plant reacts and grows afterward is very different than just letting it go, especially depending on what type of training you're doing. So for some people, it might make sense to top, and for some, maybe not. I'd say just give it a try and see which method you like and why, and take notes and consider it in your future grows. When to top is a very common question that I get, at least, and I'm sure a lot of growers do. And that's, I think, also kind of a subjective answer. I don't think there's really, a black and white, this is when you should do it and you should not ever do it in any other time. I recently have been topping after the 3rd node. I think I'm going to switch that up in my future grows just to experiment. But as long as your plant is healthy and you're not in the stretch or just entering the stretch, and as long as you've got at least 3 nodes. I mean, I've seen people top at the 2nd node. You can do that as well if you want to. I don't, but you can. But as long as you've got a few nodes on there, if it's your first time topping, maybe try after the 4th or the 5th, and that way your plant will still grow and a little bushy like normal, and you can kind of just get the feel for it, I guess. Or you could just chop that sucker after the 3rd. But as long as your plant is healthy and is, like maybe 2 to 3 weeks old, and if it's healthy, then go for it, man. I would suggest using a clean, knife or pair of scissors. I personally use like a brand new X-Acto blade, like a hobby knife, and I just get a brand new one out. It's sharp, really, really sharp, and it just slices through that without any tears. It does minimal damage to the stem. I personally like using that method. And once you top, it could stunt the growth for a couple of days. Maybe not stunt it, but kind of pause it. I've noticed for me, sometimes when I top, it'll just kind of pause for a couple of days. I don't know if it's figuring out what to do and how to reroute whatever that is, but sometimes it doesn't actually. I have had a couple of plants where I topped them and they just kept growing. It was pretty crazy. So I guess it just depends on the genetics and your environment, and there's tons and tons of variables obviously that go into it. But I think topping could be a good thing. It could really help with the canopy height of your plant. If you really want to train and keep it short and bushy, if you're interested in mainlining and getting all colas, there's a certain way that needs to be done in order to release the hormones in the plant to get all those colas. There's a really good article on growweedeasy.com. And there's a really good article about mainlining on there and kind of the science behind it and what the plant is doing. If you look at some of my mainlining pictures, well, they're not really actually a true mainline, I don't think. But if you were to look at some of my pictures on my Tourette Grower account, you'll see that I would top after the third, and then as soon as the 2 new colas came out, I topped those right away again. And if you're really trying to do a true mainline to get all colas, like you see like Green 75 and Greasy Greens and these guys just getting all of these even demon claw looking colas coming out of that soil, then you gotta top at the right time. Because what happens for me is I grow it out, I top after the third, I open it up and start mainlining it, but then as soon as those 2 nodes grow out, I just top them again, and I'm just totally stunting it and stopping it. And what Greasy was telling me to do was to open that thing up and let it go and let it spit out a bunch of new nodes, and you just keep laying it down and spreading those nodes out. You'll have to look at some of his pictures to see what I'm talking about. I'll put a link to his Instagram in the show notes. But you keep spreading those out, and then once you get to the edge of your pod or to the amount of colas that you want, then you top again. See, and then what that does is that sends when you mainline, you have to remove the lowers too from under that. If you're topping at the third node, then you've got to remove the lowers, so that, because what happens is your plant puts all of its energy into this main vine almost, and then you're just growing these separate branches off of it. I would really encourage you to go read that article on growweedeasy.com. It's a really good one. You can kind of learn what the plant's doing. But that's where it was a mistake came in, is I topped the second time too soon. And I just ended up with like these 4 long, tall colas on the corners, and then all of these like little tiny, finger-sized little nugs coming up off of the branch. So, yeah, for me, it's hard not to top. Number 1, because of my ceiling height, but number 2, because I do feel, at least for me, that I get a lot more out of the plant when I do top it. So, anyways, I hope that helps. I don't know. I was gonna kind of skip the episode this week, but then I thought, no, man, I can't do that. So if you stuck around, thank you so much. And again, I am sorry that I dropped the ball this week, you guys. Please remember to follow the podcast on Instagram at Autoflower Podcast. Also on Twitter at Autoflower Pod. And there is also a page on Facebook. And I would love to hear more from you guys. I love hearing from you guys. It really encourages me to keep moving and keep going. It really does, to be totally honest with you. And so if you would like to just send me a message on any of those platforms, you can also shoot me an email at autoflowerpodcast@gmail.com. Or, hey, record a little voice note on your phone and email it to me, and I'll compile them together and I'll play them on future episodes. How about that? I will chat with you next Wednesday, and I've got some guests lined up. Miss Nudie Rose is coming on. I have got Full Duplex from the Autoflower Network will be coming on. Morningstar Seed Company is going to be coming on. Miss Lady Luck 79 has agreed to come on. So we're lining them up for you. I'm going to reach out to some other growers and some soil companies, hopefully, as well. So thank you so much again for listening, and we will see you later.